Hey everyone, welcome to React tutorial video number 1. In today's video, we are going to be creating our React app, going over some terminal commands, and creating a skeleton file structure for our app. So let's jump into it. The first thing you want to do is navigate to your terminal or terminal shell. If you recall from the last video, I like to use iterm2 as my terminal. So a couple key vocabulary. When I open a terminal, it will say where I am. So it says, I'm currently in Nathan's MacBook Air 2. This just means I'm in my home directory. So to create your React app, you can create your React app anywhere, but I'm going to put it in a folder called side projects on my desktop. So I can cd or change directory to our tilde, which means home, /desktop /side projects. Cool. And now we can see here that I'm in the folder called side projects, so we're good to go. And then I can type npx create-react-app, and then the name of our app. I'm going to call this React-tutorial. All right, cool. So now it's installing, and this might take a couple of minutes. All right, great. Now that we've created our React app, let's first see what it does. So let's cd or change directory into our React tutorial, which is the name of our app. And here we can see we have a couple files. We'll get into this soon. But let's just first see what our generic React app actually does. So if I say npm start, it will spin this up onto a local server and will default to localhost 3000. So right now, the site can't be reached because the server isn't running yet. But as we're starting the development server, this should show something other than the site can't be reached. So this might take a little bit. All right, great. So now we have a very simple, very generic React app. Cool. Let's poke around with the files a bit because there's a little bit to unpack here. So in our VS Code, let's open our app. So React tutorial. Cool. All right, great. So now we have our app in VS Code or your IDE of your choice. And let's kind of explore what files we actually have. So the first thing to look at is a folder called Node Modules. This is a very large folder, both in names and spatially. This takes up a lot of space. And Node Modules is essentially your libraries and packages that you install onto your React app. So this is really large and it will only get larger pretty much. As a developer, you won't really interact with the folder Node Modules directly, although you will be managing the packages. I'll get into that later. Then we have our folder called public. This is similar, where public is essentially something you route to it to create your website, but you don't do a lot of interactions with public directly. One thing to point out is that index.html, if you come from any website stuff, every site must have an index.html, and this is it. All the index.html does here is that it has a root which is tied to index.js. We'll get into that later. And then finally, or not finally, and then later, we have our folder called source. Source is very important. It has a couple files. We're going to be rearranging these files. One thing to point out is that every React app must have an index.js in source folder. What this index.js does is just render our component called app. App is defined up here, and we can kind of trace it. So // means that it exists in the same directory. So this app component is actually defined here, which is what you see here. To even show this, I can change edit to crab. And if I save and I go back, yeah, it changes to crab. So that's something that's another demonstration of why React is cool, because I didn't need to restart the server. It just responds immediately, which is a pretty cool perk. The other files aren't too important. We'll be rearranging a lot of them, so let's keep going down. Here we have our package lock.json. Here is essentially a roadmap of our libraries and packages. You won't be interacting a lot with this directly, although you'll be doing stuff with terminal commands. We'll get into that as we download more packages. and then we package.json, another like smaller, more condensed version of this. Um, this is also important, but we won't jump too far into this just yet. All right, great. Now that you have created your React app and taken a look at some of the files in this React app, even modified one to display something else, next video we'll be going over React Router and some more details into structuring your files and ultimately structuring your app.